The glass doors of Coastal Federal Bank's downtown Miami branch slid open at exactly 2:45 on a humid Tuesday afternoon in August of 2023. Marcus Johnson walked in wearing wrinkled khaki pants and a faded polo shirt, a leather messenger bag slung over his shoulder. He'd just gotten off a red-eye from Singapore and hadn't bothered changing. His eyes were tired, his beard needed trimming, and he wanted nothing more than to handle one simple transaction before heading home. Rachel Whitmore, the branch manager, looked up from her desk in the VIP area, and her expression shifted immediately. She watched this black man in casual clothes approach the premium banking counter, and something in her face hardened. From her glass-walled office, she stood up, smoothing her tailored navy suit, and walked directly toward him. "Excuse me," Rachel said, her voice carrying across the marble floor. "That area is for premium account holders only." Marcus glanced at her briefly, then continued walking toward the counter. "I need to make a wire transfer." "Sir." Rachel's voice grew sharper. She stepped in front of him, blocking his path. "I said that area is restricted. General banking is over there." She pointed to the regular teller windows where a line of customers waited. Marcus looked at the line, then back at her. "I have an account here. I need to access my safe deposit box and make a transfer. It'll take 10 minutes. Rachel's lips pressed into a thin line. "I'm going to need to see identification and your account information before you can proceed anywhere in this branch." Behind the counter, 3 other employees had stopped what they were doing. Jennifer Chen, a senior teller, exchanged glances with 2 associates, Brian McCarthy and Samantha Torres. They moved closer, watching the scene unfold. Marcus reached into his messenger bag and pulled out his wallet, extracting his driver's license and a black metal card. He handed them to Rachel. She barely glanced at the license before handing it back. "This doesn't match our premium account holder list. Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave the VIP area." "You didn't even check the card," Marcus said quietly. "I don't need to check anything." Rachel's voice rose slightly. "We have protocols here. We can't just let anyone waltz into our premium banking area claiming to have accounts. Do you understand how many people try this every day?" Jennifer stepped forward from behind the counter. "Is there a problem, Rachel?" "This gentleman," Rachel emphasized the word with clear sarcasm, "seems to think he can use our VIP services. I'm explaining our policies." "Maybe he should try the check cashing place down the street," Jennifer said, loud enough for other customers to hear. "They're probably more his speed." Brian laughed. He pulled out his phone and angled it toward Marcus. "Dude, seriously? You thought you could just walk in here like that?" Samantha joined them now, her arms crossed. "Sir, we're going to have to ask you to leave. You're disrupting our other customers." Marcus looked at each of them. The bank's security cameras captured everything. 3 other customers in the VIP area had turned to watch. One elderly woman clutched her purse tighter. A businessman in a suit smirked and whispered something to the person next to him. "I'm not disrupting anyone," Marcus said calmly. "I'm trying to access my account." Rachel stepped closer, invading his personal space. "Let me be very clear. We don't serve your type here. I don't know what kind of scheme you're running, but I've been in banking for 15 years. I know when someone doesn't belong." "My type?" Marcus repeated, his voice still even. "Yes." Rachel's face flushed. "People who come in here with fake cards, fake identification, trying to access accounts that don't belong to them. It's fraud, and I will call the police." Jennifer had her phone out now too, recording. "We should post this. Another scammer trying the premium bank trick." Brian moved closer to Marcus. "Bro, just leave, before this gets worse for you." Marcus reached for his messenger bag to put his wallet away. As he did, Rachel suddenly jerked backward, stumbling dramatically. The large coffee cup she'd been holding tipped forward, and the hot liquid splashed across Marcus's chest and shoulder, soaking his polo shirt. "Oh my God," Rachel exclaimed loudly. "You pushed me. Everyone saw that. He assaulted me." Marcus stood completely still, coffee dripping down his shirt. He didn't flinch. He didn't raise his voice. He simply looked at Rachel with an expression that was completely unreadable. "I have it on video," Brian shouted, still holding his phone. "He totally pushed her." Samantha rushed to Rachel's side. "Are you okay? Should we call security?" The other customers were staring now. Some had their phones out. The businessman was recording. An older man near the entrance had stopped mid-conversation with a teller to watch. Rachel composed herself, brushing imaginary dust off her suit. "Sir, you need to leave immediately or I will have you arrested for assault." Jennifer leaned over the counter. "We should blacklist him." "Make sure he can't try this at any of our other branches." Marcus slowly picked up his messenger bag from where he'd set it down. He pulled out a handkerchief and wiped some of the coffee from his shirt. But he didn't rush. He moved with deliberate calm, as if he had all the time in the world. "You people have no idea," Marcus said quietly, more to himself than to them. "What was that?" Rachel demanded. "Are you threatening us now?" "I'm not threatening anyone," Marcus said. He looked directly at Rachel, then at Jennifer, Brian, and Samantha. "I'm just observing that you've made certain assumptions, and you're very confident in those assumptions." "Yeah, we are," Brian said, "because we're right. Now get out before we call the cops." Marcus walked toward the exit. The coffee had left a dark stain across his entire chest. His shoes squeaked slightly on the marble floor. Behind him he could hear Jennifer laughing. "Can you believe that guy?" Samantha said, not bothering to lower her voice. "The audacity. They always think they're so clever." Rachel replied, "Coming in here with their little schemes." The glass doors slid open. Marcus stepped out into the Miami heat. The humidity hit him immediately, making the wet shirt cling even more uncomfortably to his skin. He stood there for a moment on the sidewalk, looking back at the bank through the glass. Inside, Rachel was already at her desk, typing something on her computer. Jennifer had returned to her window, showing Brian something on her phone. They were laughing. Samantha was helping the elderly woman who'd been watching, reassuring her that everything was fine now, that the situation had been handled. Marcus pulled out his own phone and made a single call. "Michael," he said when someone answered. "It's done." "Yes, they took the bait perfectly. No, they have no idea. Execute the paperwork. I want it done in the next 30 minutes. He hung up and got into a black Mercedes S-Class that had been waiting at the curb. The driver, who'd watched the entire scene through the bank's windows, said nothing. They pulled away from Coastal Federal Bank's downtown Miami branch at exactly 3:15 in the afternoon. Inside the bank, business continued as normal. Rachel processed an account opening for a new customer. Jennifer handled a deposit. Brian helped someone with a credit card application. Samantha was on the phone with the bank's fraud department, filing a report about the attempted scam they'd just prevented. Nobody noticed that the branch's computer system had begun updating new ownership information. Nobody paid attention to the automated email that landed in Rachel's inbox at 3:22. Nobody heard the phones ringing in the back offices, where the regional director was trying desperately to reach anyone in the downtown Miami branch. At 3:38, exactly 53 minutes after Marcus Johnson had walked out of the bank, the branch's main phone rang. Jennifer answered it. "Coastal Federal Bank, downtown Miami. How can I help you?" The voice on the other end was sharp and urgent. "This is Gregory Paulson, Regional Director. I need to speak to Rachel Whitmore immediately. It's an emergency." Jennifer's smile faded. She's with a customer. Can I take a message?" "Get her on the phone now!" Paulson's voice cracked. "I don't care what she's doing. Every second counts." Jennifer's hand trembled slightly as she put the call on hold. She rushed to Rachel's desk. "Rachel, it's the regional director. He says it's an emergency." Rachel frowned, excusing herself from her customer. She picked up the phone. "This is Rachel Whitmore." What happened next, everyone in the bank would remember for the rest of their lives. Rachel's face went from confused to pale to completely white in the span of about 15 seconds. Her mouth opened and closed. Her free hand gripped the edge of her desk so hard her knuckles turned white. "That's not possible," she whispered into the phone. No, that can't be right." Jennifer moved closer. "What's wrong?" Rachel wasn't listening. "But I didn't know. He looked like..." She hung up the phone without saying goodbye. Her hands were shaking. "Rachel." Samantha had joined them now. "What did he say?" "The bank." Rachel's voice was barely audible. Someone just bought the bank. What? Brian had come over too. What are you talking about? The entire bank. Rachel looked up at them, her eyes wide with something between disbelief and growing horror. Coastal Federal Bank was just acquired by Summit Capital Partners. The deal closed 15 minutes ago. $890 million. It's been in the works for months, apparently. The final signing was this afternoon. Okay, Jennifer said slowly. But what does that have to do with... She stopped. They all stopped. Because at that exact moment, Marcus Johnson walked back through the glass doors of the bank. He wasn't wearing the coffee-stained polo shirt anymore. He wore a perfectly tailored charcoal suit, a crisp white shirt, and a blue tie. His leather messenger bag was gone, replaced by a slim briefcase. Behind him came two men in equally impressive suits and a woman carrying a tablet. But it was Marcus's face that made everyone freeze. He wasn't angry. He wasn't smirking. He simply looked at each of them with the same calm expression he'd had when he left. Rachel stood up from her desk. Her legs seemed unsteady. Marcus walked directly to the VIP area, and this time, nobody tried to stop him. He set his briefcase down on the counter where he'd tried to conduct business less than an hour ago. "My name is Marcus Johnson," he said clearly, his voice carrying across the now silent bank. "I'm the founder and CEO of Summit Capital Partners. As of 3:15 this afternoon, my firm owns 100% of Coastal Federal Bank. That includes this branch, all its assets, and all employment contracts." The woman with the tablet stepped forward. "I'm Laura Chen, head of legal for Summit Capital. We need to speak with Rachel Whitmore, Jennifer Chen, Brian McCarthy, and Samantha Torres immediately." That's me," Jennifer said weakly. "I'm Jennifer Chen." "We know who you are," Laura said. "We have video footage from the security cameras. We also have the footage that Mr. McCarthy posted to his social media 17 minutes ago, which has since been deleted, but which we preserved. We have audio recordings of everything that was said in this branch between 2:45 and 3:15 this afternoon." Rachel found her voice. "Mr. Johnson, we didn't. You have to understand." "I understand perfectly," Marcus said. "You made assumptions based on how I looked. You denied me service. You accused me of fraud. You assaulted me with hot coffee and then falsely claimed I pushed you. You filmed me without consent with the intention of publicly humiliating me. You encouraged others to join in the mockery. And you filed a fraudulent report with the bank's fraud department. It was a mistake." Rachel's voice broke. You thought I was someone who didn't deserve respect." Marcus's voice remained level. "You thought I was someone you could treat as less than human. You were so certain of your judgments that you didn't even bother to verify my account before escalating the situation." The businessman who'd been recording earlier was still in the bank. His phone was up again, capturing every word. The footage would be viral within hours. Laura Chen opened her tablet. "Rachel Whitmore, your employment with Coastal Federal Bank is terminated effective immediately. Jennifer Chen, Brian McCarthy, Samantha Torres, your employment is also terminated immediately. Security will escort you from the building. You have 15 minutes to collect your personal belongings. All company property, including phones and computers, will be surrendered before you leave." "You can't do this," Brian protested. "We were doing our jobs. We were protecting the bank." "You were discriminating against a customer based on his appearance," Laura said coldly. "You assaulted him. You attempted to have him arrested on false charges. You mocked him publicly and posted that mockery online. Mr. Johnson had every right to file criminal charges against each of you. Instead, he's simply terminating your employment." "Rachel has worked here for 15 years, Samantha said desperately. "She has seniority. She has rights." "Florida is an at-will employment state," Laura replied, "and even if it weren't, the behavior displayed today constitutes gross misconduct that would warrant immediate termination in any jurisdiction. The decision is final and non-negotiable." Rachel sank back into her chair. The reality was settling in. 15 years of career building gone in an instant. Her reputation in the banking industry destroyed. The video that Brian had posted, even though deleted, had been seen by hundreds of people. Screenshots existed. People had shared it. Jennifer was crying now. "I have a mortgage. I have bills. What am I supposed to do?" "You should have thought of that before you participated in the humiliation of a customer," Marcus said. There was no satisfaction in his voice, no triumph, just statement of fact. You made a choice. Now you live with the consequences. 2 security guards had appeared. They stood by, waiting. "As for the incident report filed with the fraud department," Laura continued, "that false report is being forwarded to Miami-Dade Police Department. They'll determine whether charges should be filed for filing a false police report and attempted fraud." "No," Rachel whispered. "Please. I have a family. I have a daughter." "Then you should have acted like someone who cared about protecting their family's future," Marcus said. "Instead, you chose to protect your own prejudices." He turned to the other customers who were still in the bank, watching everything. "To everyone else, I apologize for the disruption. Coastal Federal Bank will continue operations without interruption. Your accounts are safe. Your banking relationships are secure. We're simply making necessary personnel changes to ensure that every customer, regardless of their appearance, receives the respect and service they deserve." The elderly woman who'd clutched her purse earlier spoke up, her voice trembling slightly. "I saw what they did to you. It was wrong. I'm sorry I didn't say anything." Marcus looked at her and his expression softened slightly. "Thank you. But don't apologize. You weren't the one who chose cruelty." Rachel was being escorted toward the offices now to collect her things. She looked back at Marcus one more time. "I'm sorry," she said. "I'm so sorry." "I know you are," Marcus replied. "But you're sorry you got caught. You're sorry there were consequences. You're not sorry for what you believed about me when I walked in here." That was the last thing he said to her. Over the next hour, the story spread. By 6 that evening, every major news outlet in South Florida was covering it. By 9, it was national news. By midnight, it was international. The video footage, properly contextualized and released by Summit Capital's media team, showed exactly what had happened. There was no ambiguity, no room for alternative interpretation. Rachel Whitmore's name was everywhere. So was Jennifer Chen's, Brian McCarthy and Samantha Torres. Their social media accounts were found. Their histories were examined. More stories emerged, stories from other customers who'd felt unwelcome, who'd been treated with suspicion, who'd been turned away. The downtown Miami branch of Coastal Federal Bank was closed for 3 days for what the company called comprehensive retraining and restructuring. When it reopened, it had an entirely new staff. The VIP area was redesigned to be more inclusive. New protocols were implemented. Signs were posted about the bank's commitment to serving all customers with dignity and respect. Marcus Johnson never returned to that branch. He didn't need to. The message had been sent, and it had been received loud and clear. 6 months later, Rachel Whitmore was working as a part-time administrative assistant at a small insurance office in Fort Lauderdale. She'd applied to 17 different banks, and 17 different banks had turned her down. Her name was too well known. The incident too recent. Her daughter had to transfer schools because the other parents recognized Rachel from the news coverage. Jennifer Chen moved back to California to live with her parents. At 41 years old, she was starting over in a different industry entirely, hoping distance and time would help people forget. Brian McCarthy deleted all his social media accounts and changed his name legally. He worked odd jobs, nothing in finance, nothing that required a background check that would pull up the incident. Samantha Torres fared slightly better. She'd been the least involved in the actual confrontation, but she'd stood by and watched. She'd laughed. That was enough to make her unemployable in banking. She eventually found work in retail, making a fraction of what she'd earned before. The deal that had been in the works for months, the $890 million acquisition of Coastal Federal Bank by Summit Capital Partners, was one of the most successful purchases Marcus Johnson's firm had ever made. Under new management, with new policies prioritizing customer service and dignity for all clients, the bank's reputation actually improved. Customer satisfaction scores went up. Deposits increased. Within a year, the bank's value had grown substantially. Marcus Johnson remained the CEO of Summit Capital Partners. His net worth, already in the billions, continued to grow. He never gave extensive interviews about the incident. When asked, he simply said, "I wanted to see how I'd be treated when people didn't know who I was." The answer was educational, but those who knew him well understood something deeper. This hadn't been about revenge. It had been about accountability, about showing that actions have consequences, about proving that dignity isn't something you earn by proving your worth to others. It's something you're entitled to simply by being human. The coffee stain never came out of that polo shirt. Marcus kept it, hanging in his office closet as a reminder, not of the humiliation, but of the moment he'd walked out of that bank in silence. The moment he'd chosen not to argue, not to prove himself, not to beg for basic respect, because he'd known something that Rachel Whitmore, Jennifer Chen, Brian McCarthy, and Samantha Torres didn't know. He'd known that justice wasn't always immediate, but when it came, it was complete. And when you humiliate someone without knowing who they are, without caring who they are, simply because of what they look like, you're not just making a mistake, you're revealing who you are. And once revealed, some things can never be hidden again. This case reminds us that nobody should be judged by their appearance alone. The justice, when it arrives, is complete and irreversible. Could you perceive the signs that something was wrong throughout the narrative? Share your theories in the comments. If you enjoyed this type of poetic justice story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate notifications. Leave your like if this story inspired you, and share it with someone who believes that hidden power is the best plot twist.